Hey everybody, it's Wahome from Wahome Gitonga Coaching. Hope you all have an amazing Sunday. Welcome to another episode of Business Conversations Interviews, where we interview the most successful people across various industries, from coaches, business entrepreneurs, authors, business owners, influencers, and a variety of other people. So today I have the privilege of interviewing Lindsey Hood. Lindsey Hood is one of the most successful coaches in the UK, and she specializes in helping her clients overcome imposter syndrome, master their confidence, and really raise their performance. So we're really lucky to have Lindsey on today. So without further ado, let me admit Lindsey. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Kent?
Oh, technology is not going to defeat us this time.
Okay, so let's dive into it. So first question, tell us about yourself. What is your background and what did you decide to get into business?
Okay, so go right the way back to the beginning. I started my career I started in a financial institution, and I sort of worked for them for 17 years in lots of different departments and increasing kind of my skill set as I went. I took voluntary redundancy when it was offered. It felt like the right time, and whilst I was there, I kind of had started to train as a coach anyway. I thought it was something that was good from a skill set point of view and an area I really enjoyed. Then took a few contract positions, and I then moved into sort of working part-time in my own business, so from the coaching side of things, and then also still working for a corporate company as well. And it's kind of that development and evolution over time into my own coaching practice. And kind of I've still got a portfolio career. I still work for a corporation as well, but I really like that mix. For me, it really works, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more later. But working for myself, being into business, I think the biggest thing is that they're two completely different skill sets. So when I kind of realised I wanted to be a coach and coach people, that's what I want my business to be. But actually, the skill of being in business is very different to just deciding what you want to actually do. And it took me a long time to kind of understand what I needed to do to be good in business as well.
So what was the actual idea behind creating your coaching practice? Like, what were you hoping to achieve or help? And what was your driving passion behind that?
Yeah, so when I was training to be a coach, as you know, you do a lot of self-analysis, and I realised I had this behavioural pattern that every time I was very ambitious in my corporate career, and every time I kind of went for a position, I could see the possibilities. But then when I got into the position, I'd have huge self-doubt, and the imposter syndrome would creep in. I didn't know this at the time, in terms of the name of that. And it was only on that reflection that I and the study and the research, I realised it did have a name, and it was called the imposter syndrome. And it really interested in me, especially when I kind of found out that up to 70% of people struggle with it at some point in their lives. When I started business, I did probably the thing that a lot of people do, where you're told to find a niche, and in your head you're like, I don't want to exclude anybody. I can help absolutely everybody. And though you can, I think it was then working with a business coach myself, it was kind of then narrowing down what is my real area of expertise. And it was around the imposter syndrome, because it was my own story where I'd done all of my own research and everything else. And it has lots around that confidence generally. So I think that the aim behind my business now is very much empowering women in particular who are struggling with these feelings of not being good enough, being a fraud, going to get found out, and those kind of niggly things that keep you up at night, to help you work through that to feel genuinely confident, so that whoever you are as an individual, you can show up fully in your career, your life, your business, whatever that looks like for you.
So what was the kind of biggest challenge you personally faced when you were starting out with your business? And how did you manage to overcome that?
Mindset. It is always mindset. So for me, it was feeling like I wasn't good enough. So my own imposter syndrome kept coming back the whole time, sort of starting the business. Yeah, I was the fear that I wasn't good enough, that I would never have enough clients, that people wouldn't pay me to do what I wanted to do. And I overcame this in two ways. Firstly, I worked with my own business and mindset coach. So I think that's really important. So even though I knew the strategies myself, it can be really difficult to coach yourself because you can't see your own blind spots, and you need to be held accountable. I think the second part for me was focusing on my own values and discovering, so like I mentioned before about the portfolio career side of things. So when I really did some work around my values, security came out as hugely important to me. And security, when you're fully self-employed, as we know, do not go together. They're two very separate things. So I think it was then kind of I hadn't realised security was important to me, and I think it was because up until that point I always was in a job that was paying money, so it had never really occurred to me that this was ever going to be an issue. So it's only when I was really looking at going into business that these feelings started really coming up, and that mindset around money and not having enough. And I think doing that value work meant that instead of either going full on into the business, which works for some people, but I think I would have had a real fear and resistance to that, or it would have gone the other way where I would never have even tried because the fear was too great. But accepting my values and where I was at that point in time, then I could think of the third solution, which was go part-time so I could keep some security, but also work on my dream.
It's amazing how, for a lot of business owners, mindset is the number one thing they tend to find that defeats them, whether it's the belief in themselves or whether they can be a coach or run a business. And then they end up, as soon as they face that first hurdle and they can't overcome it, they end up falling procrastination and giving up. So yeah, it's amazing how that tends to be like a big sticking point.
And it's kind of sad when you think about it, because actually the only thing that's really holding you back is yourself. It's what's going on up here and not what's actually true, or what the facts are telling you. It's what you're telling yourself.
So what's been the unique skill that's allowed you to become successful?
So I think it's learning to be my authentic self. So I'm a natural introvert. I get my energies from sort of solo pursuits, and for many years, again, it kind of comes back to that mindset piece. I believe to be successful, I needed to be the loudest voice in the room. I had to be really charismatic. I had to, go networking lots, and though these things are important to a point, it was when I kind of embraced the fact that actually I prefer one-on-one conversations, which totally suits to a coaching environment because they're one-on-one conversations. And the fact that, I may not be the most charismatic person or the loudest voice, but that's okay. This is who I am, and this is how I can show up. And it also, I think, as I've sort of worked with people, it then attracts the people that are like you to you, from that kind of, more introverts sort of come forward. And it's amazing how many times you think, well, confidence is about being loud, and it's not. It's about that feeling. It's about knowing your worth. And I think when you do some of that work and you get that self-awareness, then you can fully show up and have that real self-confidence about who you are as a person.
I agree with that totally. And so what advice do you give to people who are thinking of creating their own business, but they're too afraid to make that first step?
So I think action breeds confidence. So it's creating a plan, and we're coaches, we love a good plan. So how do you get from here to here? Really breaking that down, but find that smallest action that you can start to do today that's going to move you forward. So it could be maybe you need to speak to somebody that's already in the industry. Maybe you need to look for a mentor or a coach. Maybe it's reading a biography of somebody that's already done something that you're really interested in. Maybe if you've already got a product or a service, it's offering it to people, maybe free of charge at the moment. Maybe if they could then give a testimonial if they like it, so you can start to build that. But it's finding that first small step that you can take and taking it. And then once you've done that, find the next one and do that. And it's that aggregation of all those small steps. As you're doing them, often they don't even feel like you're making this huge leap forward. So you're kind of taking that momentum. But when you look back, if you did 30 small things over the next 30 days, in a month's time, you could be amazed at how far you've pushed yourself forward.
Yeah, I agree there with you about taking action. And then it sounds to me you're talking about having a clear plan of process.
Yes.
And sticking to that process and making sure that you are doing things the right way and following the right steps.
Yeah. And I think once you've broken that down, it can feel so daunting. If you've got a big goal, and I'm all for having these big, hairy, audacious goals, and going after them. But when you're starting out, they can be so scary. And starting a business is one of the biggest goals that you can have. So what does that look like? What's that end goal? Keep that in mind. But to your point, what are all those tiny steps that you need to take to move you forward to get there? Because if you're only focusing purely on that end goal, it can feel so daunting, and then you get get paralyzed by the fear of it all. Whereas if you can break it down and have a process, you can just keep making progress.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm just conscious, obviously, the rain's making a lot of noise in my window, so hopefully.
I can't actually hear it.
Oh, good. Okay, just making sure. Okay, so what are the most common reasons why people come to you for coaching, and how can you help people?
Okay, so obviously I've specialised around the imposter syndrome, so that's often why people come to me. But it's often, in particular, it's around the fears of not being good enough at what they're doing at this point in time. So whether it's starting to create a business, whether it's in their career, sometimes it's things like, mums that are going back after maternity leave, and that's a really difficult point for them, because for whatever reason they need to go back to work, whether it's for their own personal and professional development, whether it's monetary, but they have this foot in both camps, and they're like, well, I don't feel like I'm being a great mum, but I don't feel like I'm being a great worker either. And it's kind of working through this new world for them. And I think a lot of people have that. It's that inner critic, it's that inner voice that's telling you things, whether your mum returning, whether you're starting a new career, whether you've been in a career for a bit and you're trying something new. Every time you push outside your current comfort zone, that voice comes up, and that's what I particularly work with people on. Is how do you have the strategies to reduce that inner critic? I don't think you ever get rid of it, but it's how do you overcome it? How do you have different strategies to quieten it down? And I think the other thing working to be fair with any coach is that accountability. Because all these things are great in theory, you can tell people different theories, but it's when they start to take action that this becomes real for them. And the great thing with coaching is the fact that between the sessions, you're set homework, you're going to try out these things, and then you've got somebody to report back to that's in a safe space to actually see what worked for you and what didn't. Because again, things in theory are exactly that. They're theoretical until you put them into practice. And it's you putting them into practice and seeing what works for you is what's going to move you forward. And I think it's holding that safe space for people, working with people around also what they think about confidence. So I mentioned before, like I used to think it had to be the loudest voice in the room. Often people think that when they come to me, they're well, I need to become really loud and I need to be really forceful and assertive. And actually what you need is that time and space to understand, what does confidence mean to you, and how do you integrate that into you as a person, into who you are, so you can show up without being false. Because sometimes kind of the flip side is, if you kind of try and change your personality because you feel that you have to be a certain way to be confident, technically then you are an imposter, because that isn't who you are as a person. You are showing up in a different way. So it's how do you integrate who you are with who you feel that you need to be, the behaviours, to actually then become really authentic, so you can show up in the way that feels right for you in any circumstance. And that's kind of what I'm working with people. It is a lot around mindset, but it's sort of changing how you feel about confidence so you can show up fully.
That's really good. I like that. So in a recent survey of 9,000 workers across various industries by UK Workplace, they found that 70% of women suffer from lack of confidence, while 60% of men suffer from lack of confidence. Why do you feel that so many people are suffering from lack of confidence?
So it's very much in line with the sort of the numbers that around imposter syndrome as well, which is obviously really linked to it. Lots of theories around this. My personal is, I think it's comparison. I think that's what causes it. And I think we live in a world where we spend a lot of time on social media, and we're seeing all of these celebrities, and we're seeing friends and family, and we often forget it's often the highlight reel. It's the best bits of their day. And when we're then doing that comparison of, okay, well, my life isn't as great as their life, or their life's better, or they're better than me in this way. And you're taking that one picture or post and not thinking about the fact that it's maybe taken them a long time to get to that point. Maybe that's actually the only good thing that's happened to them in that day. It could be the fact that you're not thinking that they've struggled, but maybe they're faking it till they make it. You're just taking what they're showing as the absolute, this is their life and they are amazing, and comparing it to your self-awareness of all the things that are going on for you at the moment, and going, well, I don't live up to them, I'm not as good as them. And I think it's that kind of inner dialogue of, they are great and I am not, or they are worthy and I am not, or they're good enough and I'm not, that then really over time, if we're not checking in and realising we're having those thoughts, that's what then dents our confidence over time.
Yeah, I do. I think we spend a lot of time comparing ourselves, and it is the easiest thing to compare yourself to, I don't know, whether it's your friend who's got a nice flashy car, but then also a lot of times we don't know the extent that car could be borrowed. That car could be the dad's car, you know. So we own, like I was saying, we only see the bits that they want to show us. You don't actually see the background behind it.
Exactly. Yeah, they might be having sleepless nights every night because they're so worried about the amount of money they've borrowed for, to get that car. They may not. They might be as great as you think, but the thing is, you don't know. You don't know what's actually behind it. But we tell ourselves a story. It's the mindset piece again, and we believe that story.
Yeah, I like that. So what advice would you give someone who has suffered from low self-esteem and they're looking to overcome this?
So I think a really effective strategy, and it's simple, is to list out all of your accomplishments. And by accomplishments, I mean anything you can do today that once you couldn't do. So this includes, but isn't limited to, things like talking, walking, texting, using a computer, running, cycling, driving, cooking, looking after a pet, looking after your finances, having a job, getting a promotion, winning an award. It doesn't have to just be the big things, it's also all the small things. And I think by doing this, what you're doing is you're building your own evidence bank of all the things that you have achieved in your life. And a lot of the time, once we've achieved something, we forget about it. We kind of then dismiss it, or we have that little bit of joy and then it becomes our own. And it's, in some ways, it's how the comfort zone grows. But I think sometimes that reminder of all the things we've done, and also all the things we've had to overcome to be able to do that. So if I use the driving as an example, I mean, when you first get into a car, it just seems impossible. You know, your hands are doing different things, your feet, you've got to look at things. Once you've learned to drive, if somebody says to you, explain to me how you drive, it's almost impossible to tell them, because it's become so part of how you do something. So, and there are so many examples of that things that were so difficult to us and have become our norm, and it's reminding ourselves that we can do this. We have this inner resource and resilience to actually overcome a lot, and just that gentle reminder of your own evidence bank, I think, can really help to grow your confidence in your own abilities.
I like that, looking at achievements. You know, yeah. I think a lot of people do tend to downplay their achievements and make them seem insignificant, especially not realizing, okay, that there's small things that they do that are achievements, but they'll focus on the big overall task and say, I've not completed that, achieved that, and they make themselves feel bad for it.
Yeah, it's like the adage of, you know, a baby learning to walk. It's not like they try once or twice and then go, oh, this walking malarkey's not for me, I keep falling over. Otherwise we'd all be crawling around on the floor. It's that kind of, we have to keep going, and sometimes we forget that it is a journey. There's very few times that you go from 0 to 100 on knowing how to do something. There is a process. Sometimes it's quicker and easier, but I think as adults, we're not great at that learning process. We kind of feel that we should be able to do something and we should be good at this, and that use of the word should, I hate personally. And it's that kind of, I think we try and rush things, and we don't accept that there is a process, there's a learning process, and it's cliched, but it's cliched for a reason. It's a journey. It's that kind of, we have to take those steps to get from here to here. And because of that, we have to sometimes slow down and accept that it's not going to be perfect straight away.
Yeah, I like that. So in your opinion, why do some people suffer from imposter syndrome? And what are 2 of your best tips you can give to help people overcome this?
Okay, so I think so one of the things with imposter syndrome, like the lower self-esteem, is that comparison piece. But I think it can go further than that, in terms of, it can go right back to like childhood and things like that. So for example, if you were known as the intelligent one, like you did particularly well at school, for example, or you had a sibling and they were the creative one and you were the sporty one, whenever you then did something that was outside of what that thing that you perceived as being as part of your identity, so if you're the sporty one, every time you did something that was sporty, you felt that was who you were. But if, for example, you went to a party or you did well at school, you could then feel that you were being an imposter, because that no longer felt like it was part of the identity that had been given to you. It's that kind of label. And I think that's one of the reasons the imposter syndrome can kind of set in, because it's what we've told ourselves, whether it's from other people or ourselves, it's those labels that become part of our story. And we're still comparing ourselves to other people, but as soon as we then do something that feels different to who we think we are, we feel we're acting, we feel that we're being some kind of imposter. So I think that is another reason it comes up. It can be right, and it can be from childhood, but even as adults, if there's a label that's been given to you at work from a partner, maybe a friend at some point, if that has hit a nerve with you and you've made that part of your story and like who you think you are, I think again that can really impact you when you step outside of any of those parameters and make you feel like you're struggling with imposter syndrome. In terms of tips to overcome it, I think it's understanding that your thoughts are not facts. They are your opinion or your thought process at that point in time. So it's maybe trying to find your own evidence to disprove something. And so an example might be if you say to yourself, I'm always late. So that's your story. You're saying, well, I'm always late. But always is very definitive. It's very much that's the case. It's a very fixed mindset. So I would then question and say, have you ever been on time? Has there ever been a time that you've got to a doctor's appointment on time, met a friend on time, picked your child up from school on time? You only need one example to get rid of that extreme thinking, because actually it can't be always if you've got one example that disproves that. So you're then starting to unpick your own thinking to actually put, again, it's your own evidence. It's making it really about, okay, I'm sometimes late for things, but that's okay because I'm sometimes on time as well. And actually really starting to dig into who you are and whether the stories you're telling yourself are actually true. I think another technique is linked to the fixed growth mindset piece of, if you're struggling with the imposter syndrome, you often are in a fixed mindset. You're thinking, I'm not good enough, and you're not seeing the possibility that you may change. So I really like the use of the word yet. So if you have a negative thought like, I'm not good enough, just add yet to the end. I'm not good enough yet. I can't do this. I can't do this yet. Because it's a very small word. You're not asking you to have this wholesale change, but it is moving you from that fixed mindset of I can't do something or I'm not good enough to the potential of change in the future. And the fact that actually this may change for you as you go into the future. And I find that can be really effective over time for people to kind of go, okay, yeah, I'm starting to feel that shift of you're not asking yourself to make the change at the moment. All you're doing is giving yourself the possibility that things may change in the future.
I like that. I like that because it does open you up to a different line of thinking. Yeah. And just see that there's a potential for change, and you're not stuck in this one point that you can't get out of. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, okay, that's a good suggestion. So what advice do you give to someone who then struggling to overcome, let go of past trauma experience, and that's obviously holding them back from achieving their results they want?
Yeah, so I would say it's to seek help. So if it's actually like a trauma experience, I would suggest that it's probably like a trained counsellor or psychologist or therapist for that. Coaching is very much that kind of moving you forward, and it's that forward look. But sometimes to move forward, I know that you've got to have that backwards look. And if it is something that's really holding you back, it's to make sure you're working with the right people to do that. So I know as a coach and with my own training, if somebody had a severe trauma, I wouldn't work with them. I would help refer them on to somebody else. I think if it's just, something that's slightly holding them back, it's working through that. And again, it's finding the right person to support you with that. And just slowly picking away at it, being kind to yourself as you go through that process, because I think we can be really self-critical, and like I mentioned before, as adults, we seem to, we're in a society of instant gratification. So if we can't get a result immediately, or we can't make a change immediately, or we can't get that mindset shift immediately, we often give up. but it's accepting that it's a process. And that's where I think that seeking help is so important, because whether it is a therapist or a coach or whatever, whoever you're working with, they can help hold you accountable, hold your dream for you, give you that safe space, but also help give you constructs to make it manageable. Because if you're trying to do it by yourself, it can feel so hard and so daunting. And if you do get stuck, you don't know where to go next with it. Like if you get stuck in your own thinking loop, whereas a trained professional can help you break that cycle, can ask you the question, can give you a different perspective so that you can make your own breakthrough to move forward.
I think a lot of people, especially finding a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, some of them dismiss the idea of getting a coach because they don't want to look as if they don't know what they're doing, or that they don't have the answers, or they don't prioritize. Like when people are planning out their monthly expenditure, they'll plan for a holiday, take the kids out, but they never plan to like, okay, I need to invest in myself. I need to, prioritize getting a coach and help myself go to the next level.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I know that I've worked with different coaches at different points, because I've needed different things. So whether it's more around the business or my mindset, I've worked with an NLP practitioner coach in particular because I wanted to help overcome my anxiety, and I thought actually NLP techniques were a great way to do that. And sometimes I've worked with coaches that are quite like me, very gentle when I've needed that kind of nurturing. Other times I've worked with coaches that are a lot harsher than I am, but I needed that, so I needed somebody to kick me up the butt to help me move forward. So at different points I've needed different things, and I've learned from every coach that I've worked with, both in terms of my professional, my personal development, but also, if you are a coach yourself, you learn from other people and you kind of go through that process. And I find it odd sometimes if I'm working with somebody that wants to be a coach but hasn't had their own coaching, because it's like, why? It's almost like you don't believe in what you're selling because you haven't invested in it yourself. So actually, I think it's really important to be on the receiving end of it, to really know what that process looks like and know the transformation that you got from it, because you can then really sell the benefits of what you're doing to other people.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I remember it's like Tony Robbins says that every person should have at least one coach, if not two, because as you mentioned, there's different parts of your life you're going to need a coach with, and so you want those different voices and insights feeding your mind at all times. And and if it's good enough for Bill Gates, his mentor is Warren Buffett. If it's good enough for billionaires, then who are we to say no to having a coach?
Yeah, I liken it sometimes to like Olympians, because, well, to be fair, any athlete has a coach. They never get to the gold medal and go, I don't need a coach anymore, sack you now. They keep having a coach and they keep wanting to get better. And it's that's what I think life's about. It's always trying to take yourself to that next step. And sometimes it's the same person needs it. Sometimes you do need somebody different at different points. But there is no shame in the game of going out and going, actually, I need that cheerleader in my corner that's really going to be there for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So let's say you had a client that came to you and they said, okay, look, I'm struggling, with experiencing low productivity at work, and I'm really having issues in raising my performance. Like, what advice would you give to them?
I think that I would probably try to understand what's happened, as in, at some point, have you had higher productivity? Is there a particular reason this has happened at the moment? And then it's identifying, again, those small steps that they can take. So what could they do today to help with that productivity? And a technique that I love is the Pomodoro technique, which is when you kind of set your timer for 25 minutes and you go, okay, I'm only going to focus on whatever that task is for 25 minutes. And when the timer goes off, you give yourself a 5-minute rest. And then you either say that's it for today on that task, or you go back to it for another 25 minutes. And I think that's a great way. 25 minutes is a tiny amount of time in your mind. You can kind of trick your head into going, well, if I only do 25 minutes, that's okay. It's less than half an hour on this. But when you turn off everything else, and you turn off your email notifications, your phone, and you're fully focused, it is amazing at how much you can do. Also, if you set yourself that kind of, okay, in this 25 minutes, I want to, I don't know, write 500 words, or, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you're really focusing your mind on that particular task, and your brain wants to comply. It wants to help you achieve what you set out to do. So I think it's finding those small things, using something like the Pomodoro technique to actually then just motivate yourself for that short period of time. And then if that's all that you do want to do that day, or can do that day on that particular task, fine, you then move on to a different task. But I think you'll be amazed at then how often you go, I'm into it now, I want to continue, and that productivity naturally starts to increase as a result.
Okay, I like that. Again, yeah, it's good advice, that. Obviously, like, we live in a society now with mental health such a hot topic amongst adults and children. So again, let's say you had a client that came to you and, you know, obviously they're struggling with mental health. Like, what advice should you give to them, you know, in order to like improve their mental state and their well-being?
Yeah, so you're right. I think managing your mental state and your well-being is so important, and especially in the current situation, I think it's incredibly relevant to be thinking about this. I think it's finding what works for you as an individual and the support you need. So from using myself as an example, I know that I need to limit the amount of time I spend on social media, so that I sort of do, say, 30 minutes a day. Limit myself to actually only 10 minutes of news in the morning, so I kind of understand what's going on in the world, but I don't get pulled into, so for me, I don't like the negativity. You know, positive stories don't sell, unfortunately, and I can feel that negativity otherwise sort of really pulling on me. So for my mental well-being, it's knowing what's going on in the world, but not dwelling too much on the negativity and the what ifs and all the things that the news often gets into. I exercise every morning, so I kind of do a 30 minutes, whether it's yoga or a HIIT workout, something to get my body moving. And I find exercise is really great to, one way, you know, make me become more alert and awake, but also just generally for my mental health is really good. And I also try and spend, say, 5-10 minutes in the evening before bed meditating, focusing on some of the positives that have happened in the day. So it's that kind of gratitude side of things. And maybe once or twice a week at least, try and pick up an activity that puts me into flow, so that state where the hours just disappear. And that might be reading, I play the violin, I colour mandalas. For some people, they'll be going, oh, that's not me. That's fine. It's finding what works for you. But I think finding the activities that put you into flow, that you do just because, is really a healthy way to turn your brain and your chatter and all the stress off, because you're fully focusing on something that you enjoy just for the sake of doing it. So I think I've given just a few examples, but I think it's finding what works for you, what supports you. The fundamentals, you know, sleep, you know, a lot of good sleep, good nutrition, good exercise are universals, but it's finding which of those works for you, in terms of those specifics. You know, some people love fruit, some people love veg, some people don't like either. You know, it's finding though that there will be something out there that you can do that's going to help you with that. And I think if you really are struggling with your mental health, is seek support, whatever that looks like. So you speak to your GP, speak to a counsellor if you need to, and you've got the services of places like the Samaritans and things like that if you need somebody to listen to you. or especially now in the UK, at least the lockdown things are starting to ease. You can get to a friend, sit in the garden, have a chat, those kind of things. I think social interaction is really important as well. So it's finding what works for you and makes you feel better.
Yeah, I kind of liking it. What you're talking about is like, it's maybe like doing like an lifestyle MLT.
Yes,
and you
that's
really
a
look,
really good way of putting it.
yeah, and you really look at your lifestyle, maybe on a weekly or monthly basis to see like, are you saying, are you spending too much time on social media? Are you exercising, eating the right foods? Or are you surrounding yourself with people who aren't supportive of you, like actually helping you uplift yourself? I think a lot of people don't, obviously they're quick to do something like, get a new jacket and get like a short kind of fix or a nice holiday, but obviously they don't actually, really address the actual things that are actually impacting on their actual life.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, like an MWT, lifestyle MWT is what people should be doing, like a little checklist. See, like, how happy I am this month,
Yeah.
how much time I spend with my family, those kind of things. And then that would allow you to then kind of like, manage your mental health, your energy levels, and your overall confidence.
I love that idea. So I think so many of us now have got caught up in this. It's almost like a badge of honour when people say, "How are you?" to say busy, really hectic, work's manic. And I would love to get to the point where, people can feel good about saying, actually, I'm really happy. I actually spent 3 hours reading a book this afternoon, because at the moment they're almost like shunned activities because we've got caught up in this norm of we have to be busy and hectic and manic, and it's not good for our mental health in the long run. So I love the idea of that lifestyle MOT and kind of making people want to, assess their life and go, actually, it's going to be really good if I have a weekend where I do nothing and just be.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is hard, especially when they have children. Like, it's very hard for them to, prioritize themselves and say, look, I deserve to have an hour to myself, where, they feel they had that feeling of guilt, that their partner will understand or their kids will understand, and it's crucial to have that time for yourself.
Okay.
So Cosmopolitan magazine recently found that the number one reasons for a lot of relationships breaking down was communication. So what would you give advice to a couple who are struggling with communication, or even just like, doesn't have to be a relationship, just like in general, like if people struggling with relationships, whether it's business or personal, like how do they go about improving their communication so they have more impactful relationships?
I think so. There's a saying, is it there, of you have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that ratio. And I think from communication, often when you say communication, I think people think it's what you're saying, and it isn't. It's a two-way process. And I think if you can maybe spend that time trying to really understand the other person, their viewpoint, you don't have to agree with it, but you can still empathise or understand where they're coming from, or just listen, actively listen to where they're coming from without that thought of, what am I going to say next? How am I going to tell them that they're wrong? How am I going to defend my position? Just really actively listening to what they're saying. And once you've kind of got that understanding of where they're coming from, then it's the time to then form where you're coming from. And it's very difficult to do. It's easy in theory. We all get really defensive really quickly on things. We don't like to be criticised, especially when we think we're being hard done by or wrong, what they're saying is wrong. But if we can get to that point of, seek to understand before being understood, basically, of that, I think that would really help people generally with communications. To your point, it doesn't mean that you're going to get along all of the time. Relationships are not going to break down, because actually sometimes some things you can't reconcile on because people have two completely opposing views, but it doesn't mean you can't understand or appreciate their view. You don't have to agree with it, as I said before, and actually you're going to have a more amicable split if that's unfortunately where it comes down to as a result, than if you are constantly, you're just trying to be heard and they're just trying to be heard, because actually neither of you are being heard, you're just talking at each other. And I think it's thinking about communication as that two-way process.
Yeah, I remember reading this thing that we were talking about. We need to learn how to listen 60% of the time and talk 20% of the time, and 10% plan, and then the other 10% take action. So, and that would make us way more better communication, because we spend too much time talking rather than listening.
Yeah, definitely. I like that actually. Yeah, putting the action and the plans in place. Good one.
So, what do you think are the most common reasons for people failing to create a life with meaning and purpose?
Good question. I think one of the reasons could be that individuals, what I mentioned before, we get caught up in the shoulds. And these expectations might be from society, they may be from parents or family or friends, of maybe I should get married, I should get a job, I should go to university, I should buy a bigger house, I should buy that particular car. And these are great if they're what you want to do. But I think it's becoming self-aware and understanding what you want and what's important to you. And do you want, that corporate career, or do you want to go traveling for a year, or even just taking 3 months off? And we get caught up, I think, sometimes in that fear of what will everyone else think of us. And it's taking that away and really understanding what you want, to your point before, putting the plans in place, but making it conscious, stop sleepwalking through our lives because we think there's a particular path that we need to take. Or sometimes, when I've been working with clients, it's because they've got down a path for so long and they're like, but it feels like such a waste to now change. I spent 20 years, training as a lawyer and progressing my career, but I don't enjoy doing it, and I want to do something else, but it feels like such a waste. And it's like, it's a journey, and it's okay to zigzag. And actually, what's more of a waste to continue for the next 20, 30 years doing something you don't enjoy, or doing something that you do enjoy going forward? Because if project forward, you're on your deathbed, you're looking back, what's going to make you happier? That you did that job because you thought you should do that job and because you've invested all that time and money, or to go, actually, it's not even saying cut your losses, it's just you've got to that point and now it's time for a change. That's it. It doesn't mean that it was a failure of what you've done. You're just changing your idea. And I think we get caught up in our own inner stories, what we think other people, what we think society is telling us to do. And because of that, we then stop looking for the possibilities of what our life might look like. And we don't make those jumps, and we don't create what is meaningful to us, because we either don't give ourselves permission, or we just don't even think about it in the first place, and we just go, as I said, that sleepwalking of what we think is expected of us.
Yeah, I agree with that. So obviously we're currently going through like a difficult time with COVID and the whole Black Lives Matter issue, and also there's a lot of people who are experiencing like lack of motivation, or they're finding it hard to stay upbeat. So in times like this, what are two of your best tips that help you to stay motivated that you advise other people?
So I think for me, it's having a really clear vision of what I'm trying to achieve. And that is kind of in my mind's eye, knowing what it's going to look, feel, sound like once I've achieved it, because that then makes it very real. you mentioned Tony Robbins before, it's that kind of moving away from pain, moving towards pleasure. So if you make it really pleasurable where you're heading to, it really helps with that. And maybe you don't want to put yourself in pain if you don't need to be, but we sometimes, there's a reason we are where we are, and for whatever reason something served us at some point in time. So again, it's bringing our conscious awareness to where we're at and why we want something different, and why that's going to serve us better in the long run, to try and move us away and to keep up with that momentum. I think another thing though is to be kind to yourself. So it's great to have that vision, it really helps with that motivation, but procrastination actually is a way of protecting ourselves. There's a bit of resistance there for whatever reason. So especially, you said there were a couple of big major things that are happening in the world at the moment, and sometimes it's just accepting where you're at, accepting that maybe today's a tougher day, and if you can, maybe finding that one small thing you can do, or using something like the Pomodoro technique, and even scaling that right back and saying, okay, just for 10 minutes I'm going to focus on, just so you've made some, a little bit of momentum, a little bit of push forward on that. But meet yourself where you're at and just accept that actually some days are tougher than others, and we're living in some really tough times at the moment, and we're all going through different emotions, different things that are happening at the moment, and actually any action you can take, even if it is 5-10 minutes, is still, again, if you add that up over a month, that's a couple of hours that you've managed to still put in to move yourself forward. And that's, yes, at the time you're thinking 5-10 minutes, not a huge amount, but when you look back and go, actually that's 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever over the month, you'll be so proud that you did that. So yeah, I think it's having that clear vision, but also meeting yourself where you're at the moment, and just finding the really smallest thing you can do and just doing that each day.
Like that. So can you provide us with 2 or 3 resources or books or podcasts that you could recommend our viewers that would help with, overcoming imposter syndrome or self-esteem, that really helped you or your clients along the way?
Yeah, so I'm an avid reader, or more on the Audible side when I was in the car more. So things like You're a Badass by Jen Sincero, that's kind of a mindset book. Presence by Amy Cuddy, that's very much around confidence building, but using your body. So Amy, and she's done a TED talk, which I would also suggest people check out, around using your body language, the power pose, to really help change your emotions and how you feel. Brené Brown, I find brilliant. She's done a couple of TED talks, and her book, The Power of Vulnerability. And again, all these things are great because they shift your perspective. For me, as an introvert and the clients I've been working with, you think you have to be a certain way, you have to be strong, and these change that perspective. They're written by people that have a really, the power of vulnerability is about being vulnerable, and they're maybe words you don't think of in the context of confidence. And I love things that challenge my thinking, but also that of my clients. Podcasts, not so much. TED Talks I'm a huge fan of, as I mentioned. The other resource I think is really good for people is Marie Forleo has Marie TV, and she has quite a few episodes. Obviously she's not filming at the moment, but she's got a big backlog that you can find, I think, on YouTube, or actually on her website. And there's a lot in there around mindset, confidence, and thinking about business and sort of setting up business and things like that. So they would be my go-to resources.
Well, I think our viewers should find that really valuable. So we know what you're good at. What's one thing that you're not very good at in your personal life?
accepting that I still struggle with imposter syndrome. I think I think being, on one hand, it's like I know all the strategies. I've literally just written a book on it. I work with my clients on it, but yet it still comes up for me. And I tell my clients it will keep coming up. So I know on a logical level, this is going to keep coming up, because every time you push outside your comfort zone, naturally you're going to feel a bit like an imposter because it's something new and different. I know this, but every time I push outside my comfort zone and I feel like an imposter, I get really frustrated with myself that I feel like an imposter. So yeah, that's one thing, is being kind to myself. Also, why having your own coach is important, because there's only so much you can do with yourself and for yourself. I think it's working with somebody else that helps shine that light on your blind spots, holds the mirror up for yourself, and gives you that space to really explore things. But yeah, get really frustrated that, and even though I tell everyone, and I believe that you'll never get rid of it, I think you find the strategies to overcome it quicker. And I do that, I do employ my own strategies. I still have that bit of resistance and frustration of, why do I still struggle with this?
So 2 questions.
Yes.
What is next for you? And then how can people reach out to you and work with you? Like, what social media platforms are you on, or what's your website information? Yeah.
Okay, so what's next? Just mentioned I launched a book 2 weeks ago, so there's still a lot of sort of promotion around that. Yesterday I went into a recording studio and did the audible version, so I've now got all the editing to do, and listening back to your own voice is not going to be fun. So that's going to keep you busy for the next few weeks, and I think after that it's just continue to kind of grow my practice, work with amazing people that inspire me, and yeah, just keep loving what I'm doing. In terms of reaching out, I am on all social media platforms. So on Facebook under Lindsey Hood Life Coach, Instagram the same, Lindsey Hood Life Coach. I am on LinkedIn, and I do have a website, lindseyhood.net. So yeah, reach out to me on any of those.
Yeah, so I advise anyone, like if you're suffering with imposter syndrome or wanting to work around more mindset and confidence, then reach out to Lindsey. She can definitely help you. And so one final question. What's one final piece of advice you'd give to people who are wanting to, increase their confidence, master mindset, overcome imposter syndrome?
Okay. I think, first off, congratulate yourself for getting to this point in your life, because you're awesome. You've got here, and you've got here for a reason, and you would have overcome so much already and achieved so much to have got here. I think it's remembering your potential is totally unlimited. You can continue to achieve whatever you want to achieve. It just might mean that there are some behavioural changes that might be required to do that. There may be some skills that you need to achieve, or some experience that you need to gain, but you can achieve anything that you set your mind to achieving. Things take time, and in an instant gratification society, that's a hard message, but things do take time. So whether that's a mindset shift to help you feel confident, help to quieten the self-doubt, or to actually learn a new skill, it's accepting it is part of the journey, but also accepting where you are at the moment, that you are amazing what you're doing, so you can still feel and be who you are at the moment whilst you're becoming the person that you're going to become as well. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the I'll feel confident when, I'll be happy when, and it's like, actually cultivate that feeling of I'm confident now, I'm happy now, whilst I'm still working towards this goal. And you can then kind of take that energy and help drive you forward as well, without always feeling that you have to be more before you can be how you want to be. You can be that way now if you choose to be that like that. I think small consistent changes mentioned it throughout this, definitely that way forward is finding those actions, building that momentum. Taking action gives you confidence as well, so you keep constantly building that confidence muscle. And I suppose finally, just cheesy as it may sound, is you've got this, you've totally got this, and I totally believe in you, and you just need to believe in yourself and go out and do it.
That's some great advice you've given, and it's really been a pleasure interviewing Lindsey and getting into your mindset and understanding your views. I mean, I think you've given everyone who's been watching this like a lot of good content and really good practical stuff that we can go away and implement. So once again, thank you for giving up your time to this interview with us.
Thank you for inviting me on.
And we look forward to seeing you grow the next year and seeing you achieve new things. And we'll look out for your book. Otherwise, have a great Sunday, and we'll speak to you soon.
That's great. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye, Lindsey.